Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. Welcome to this Workshop Wednesday Fireside Chat. We are so happy to have you here and to have Martyna Majok, Rebecca Frecknall, and the company of Sanctuary City with us today. My name is Rachel Silverman. I'm the artist workshop producer at New York Theater Workshop. We are broadcasting today from Zoom and also streaming on Facebook Live. We are just really happy that you've joined us. The Fireside Chat today and all of the workshop's virtual programming are free and available to the entire New York Theater Workshop community. If you are in a position to support our work, we hope you would consider donating. You'll find a link to donate in the chat on Zoom and also in the comments on Facebook. The conversation today will run a little bit over an hour. For the first 40 minutes or so, Erin will moderate a conversation with the company, and then we'll open it up to Q&A. If you have any technical or logistical questions, you can put them in the Q&A on Zoom or in the comments on Facebook. And when we get to the Q&A, you can put your questions into the same channels. If someone else has asked a question that you're also interested in, you can upvote it on Zoom by clicking the thumbs up, and you can also like it on Facebook. We'll do our very best to get to all of the questions that we can. So I'm very happy right now to introduce Martyna, Rebecca, and Jasai Chase-Owens, Sharlene, Cruz, and Austin Smith, all of whose bios are gonna pop up now in the chat and as well as in Facebook comments, and also Erin, the literary director and dramaturg at New York Theater Workshop. So you guys come anytime.
Hi, Rebecca.
Hi.
Austin. Sharlene. Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Hello, hello.
Oh, it's so nice to see you all. It's been what, just a little under a month since we were all gathered via Zoom on what would have been the opening night of Sanctuary City, and time is crazy. I don't even know how to think about time anymore. But it is so nice to see your faces again, and I feel like, just to say, particularly this week, as the latest news about immigration in this country has become even more hateful and even more dehumanizing than it had been, that we're regathered together because the work that you all were doing was so humanizing and speaks to the people who are really being left aside. But I suppose on a slightly later note, I'm so happy that you're all here. I haven't done a conversation with this many people on Zoom yet, so we're going to figure it out. I feel like it's a little going to be like virtual fives, like how do we pass back and forth? So it feels fitting that you guys are the group that we're trying this out on. And it's just going to be an opportunity for us to talk a little bit about who each of you are as artists, and then to talk a little bit about the work of making Sanctuary City that you are all doing so beautifully. So I thought we would start with this group with what I call the New York Theater Workshop introduction. We take people on retreats often in the summer, and whenever we're sitting in with a new group of artists, we often go around and ask people to share certain things about themselves. This is something that I know Jim and Linda, the artistic director and associate artistic director, have done for a very long time. So the things that I'd love to hear from each of you are, first of all, just your name, your astrological sun sign, your Chinese zodiac year, where you're from, whatever that means to you, Jim would say, where you are now. And then if you could each share if there's a moment that a first memory you have of the theater, or a moment that you knew you wanted to be an artist. And I'll be here to remind you if there's things that people are leaving off. Do you want to start, Martyna? You have done this before.
I have done this before, but that doesn't mean I'm going to do it well. Yeah. Martyna Majok. Do we say what we are? I'm a playwright.
Yeah, you're a playwright.
And I'm also an Aquarius. You're the Ox. I am from Poland and Jersey and kind of Chicago a little bit also. What else? And then
a moment that you wanted to be an artist, or a first memory of the theater.
I knew for sure I wanted to work in the theater the first time I worked in a rehearsal room, and I realized that you create this little family of people every time you do a show, and that you get so close together, and that family feeling, I was like, I'm in. So yeah, that's what. And it's still the reason why I do theater.
How old were you the first time you were in a rehearsal room?
I was in college because I guess it was a little bit later than, I didn't see theater until I was like 18, so 17 or 18. Yeah.
What was the first play you saw?
I saw Cabaret. I saw
Mm.
Cabaret on a whim. Yeah, because my mom was working and she as a house cleaner, and she like would bring home pamphlets for us, and apparently John Stamos was in Cabaret, and she was like, Uncle Jesse's in the city, do you want to see this show? And I was like, yeah, I do, I want to see Uncle Jesse. So I was like, great.
I love it. Rebecca, do you want to go next?
I'm Rebecca. I'm a director. I'm a Gemini and Year of the Tiger, I believe. And I'm from Cambridgeshire in the UK, but live in London and have done for quite a long time now. And what's the next thing? Moment of...
Yeah, a moment, either a first memory of the theater or a moment you knew you wanted to be an artist.
I can't remember the moment of wanting, like, I feel like I've always wanted to work in the theatre. I don't remember, like, I remember knowing I wanted to be a director specifically, but theatre, I feel like that's been forever. I have a really...
Well, what about being a director? When did you know that?
When I started university, I thought I wanted to be an actor. And then there was no like drama club or theatre society or anything where I went to college. There was no opportunity to do anything. And so the only opportunity to do something was to make something. So I wrote and directed a play and I just cast all my friends in it. And that was it really. I sort of realized that actually the bit I loved was making it. I didn't care about performing at all, and that was it really. I then majored in directing and sort of never performed again.
Well, thank you for joining us from London, where the sun is, I imagine, not still shining at this hour.
It's not still shining. No, it's my bed.
Let's see, on my screen, why don't we go to Austin next?
Great. I'm Austin. I'm from right outside Chicago. I am also a Gemini. And it's the year of the dragon. I learned as I just quickly Googled. I feel like doing plays in high school was probably when I realized that like this is what I maybe want to do with the rest of my life. I was fortunate enough to go to a high school that had a really good program, so we did like a lot of shows a year for a public high school, and I felt like by the time I left, I was like, I think this might be what I want to do. And then, I kind of did.
Did you study theater performance, or did you?
When I graduated from high school, everyone was telling me like, if you have an inkling of a doubt that you might not want to do this for the rest of your life, then don't go to conservatory because you're only 18 years old. And I was like, well, yeah, okay. So I went to liberal arts school, and I still studied theater, but it wasn't a conservatory. So I still studied abroad and studied other stuff. But then after that, I was like, I think I need to go to drama school. I did a semester abroad at the Moscow Art Theater School, and then I came back and auditioned for drama school, and then went. And that kind of sealed the deal. And it was, yeah, and the rest is history, I guess. Yeah.
I love it. What about you, Sharlene?
What was the first one? Oh, I'm a Taurus. And I'm Year of the Dog.
Great.
I'm from New York, from Uptown, and that's where I live. Still Uptown. My first memory, or what was it again?
Either a first memory you have of the theater, or a moment you knew you wanted to be an artist, or.
Right. Well, my first play was Pippin. I did a musical in like 6th grade. I played the head, and it was great. I mean, I knew I wanted to keep doing it. It's similar to Martina's answer when this was the first time I was around, it was at a community theater, and it was the first time I was around like people that like, I feel like got me and that I got, you know, and it felt safe as opposed to like school. So yeah, I was like, it seems like the right place to be in. Yeah.
Cool.
Cool.
Guy?
Yeah, I'm Jasai. I'm also from New York. Still here. Probably will be forever. I love
Going
it.
anywhere.
Yeah, similar to what everyone else has been saying, kind of. I mean, with Martyna and Sharlene, I started doing community theater actually at Downtown Art, where we did our first week of rehearsal. I did my first play there ever, and that's kind of where I started getting into it, being around people who were just as strange as I was. And then I didn't think it was actually fathomable for me to do it as a career, I think, until I was in high school. Yeah, and then from there, I kind of just didn't look back with it, what I wanted to do since then. And I skipped I'm an Aquarius.
Awesome.
And
Aquarius.
yes,
Aquarius
and you're the pig.
Great. I love that. I love it. Martyna, I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about the genesis of Sanctuary City.
Yeah, for sure. I was working on a play called Queens that I was having a hard time writing and finishing. And I was working on it late at night one night, and it was like 3 a.m. I thought like it's time to clock out and like give up for the night. And I was writing this scene with a dreamer character. A dreamer character had just entered the play. And I went to bed and I kept thinking about this memory I had from growing up in Jersey and some people that I had known. And scenes started coming to me. And so I got out of bed thinking like, I'm just going to take some notes on this, like maybe play. And I started taking notes and realized a few pages in, like I was writing the play. And so about 3 days later, I canceled all my stuff and stayed home and said, which you can't do now. And in 3 days I had the first draft of the play.
And we worked on it together for a while. You came to the workshop with it early, and we were so grateful. I viscerally remember my first time reading it, and have been continually amazed at how you've shaped it over the last 2.5 years. I wonder how you and Rebecca found each other, and what your first experience of the play was, Rebecca.
We weirdly also found each other through this other play, Queens. So I work at a theatre called the Almeida in North London, and we had, I don't know how we had it, but we had the script of Queens. I don't know whether you sent it, Martyna, or we asked for it.
I just begged.
Who knows? And it was one of those plays that kept, and Martyna as a writer kind of would often come up in artistic discussions and script meetings about, what about, you know, I feel like every few months since I started, someone would say, what about Queens? And there was always, I think we knew that Martyna had said it was a play that she would want to rework if it was to happen again, and would want some more time on. So when Martyna was coming over to London to work on the London premiere of another play, Cost of Living, that was going on at the Hampstead, my boss, Rupert Gould, said, why don't we see if we can kind of piggyback on Martyna being in London anyway, and spend a couple of days letting her hear Queens again, and with some actors, and seeing if it's something that she wants to work on again or not. And because I was the associate director there, he just said, oh, Frex, could you sort of do that, so that we don't bring in another director who might think this is going to be a gig, because it might not. So could you just do it? So I went, yeah, fine. And Martyna and I hadn't met. I'd read Queens, and we sort of met we spoke on the phone, I think, trying to cast the Queens workshop with actors you didn't know and never met. And so then we met a couple of times when you were over, and then we did these 2 days reading Queens, and talking. And then after those 2 days, we went to the pub, and Martyna went, "Do you want to come to New York and do my next play?" And I thought she was joking, and maybe you were.
No.
Came out. And I sort of went, hilarious. And then my boss came down to join to give notes, and he said, "Oh, I'm trying to get this one to come to New York." And I sort of thought, what's happening? And then a week later, Martyna had gone back to New York, and then I got an email in my inbox saying, "Seriously, do you want to come to the workshop have said you can." And then I sort of freaked out and went, "I can't do a play abroad. I don't know. I can't do that. That sounds scary." And I was halfway through my production of Three Sisters in London, and which was a very, very big, difficult show. And I think I was sort of going, I can't possibly cope with doing a play in New York. So I originally said no, because I was too scared. And then my agent talked me down, and then I said, actually, it was probably a good idea. And also, and at that point, Martyna sent me the play as well. And I remember reading it and being very moved by it, and also really excited formally by it and how it read on the page, because it was so, it really felt like I recognized the writer that had written Queens in it, but it had a theatricality to it that felt directorially really interesting to me. And I felt like it was a story that I felt like, why aren't more of these stories on the stage? It felt like such a fruitful, thing to write about. And so I sort of eventually calmed down and said yes. Okay.
So I'd never seen her direct. I hadn't seen.
She'd never seen anything I'd done.
I was like, oh, this is a nice relationship. I really like this person. And then I asked her to do it, but later.
Well, it's very simple.
It came later.
She sent me a recording of something you've directed, but by this point she'd already asked me to do the show, so that was awkward.
But I was like, oh fuck, I really hope I like it. So and actually, it actually ended up being one of the most moving, beautiful pieces of theater I'd ever seen, full stop, in my life. And I just watched it off of my laptop. So I was like, oh, thank God.
That was a relief.
It's very coincidental, because we're constantly trying to keep tabs. We don't get over to London enough, but we're constantly trying to keep tabs on what's going on over there. And Rebecca's name had been also coming up in our office as somebody who we should be trying to figure out how to get in touch with and how to work with. And then Martyna came back and said, "What about Rebecca Frecknall?" And we said, "Oh, wow." So it was the same sort of level of, oh wow, this is everything. All the pieces are coming together just right. We're gonna play a clip from the production, but I want to hear, I'd love to hear about first responses to the script from Austin, Sharlene, and Jasai. Any of you, if you want to offer that before we roll the little clip we have.
Interestingly enough for me, I saw a reading of this play. I'd never read it. Martyna and I were at a conference where people were felt like a bunch of plays, and I saw it, and I just remember how the air in the room changed from the beginning of the play to the end, and everybody was kind of spellbound by this play. And I think that kind of encapsulates how I felt about it, or I feel about it every time we read it, or every time we would kind of do a run through. It really takes you on a journey that you really don't expect, and you're not aware of how like the play is working on you while it's happening. And that to me has always been incredibly something really compelling and kind of incredible about the play. So yeah, I kind of saw it before I'd ever read it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I remember reading it, and just, first of all, I was really grateful for what it said in the breakdown when I was auditioning for it, in the casting call, and what it says at the beginning of the play, how it's open to so many people from around the world, that these characters can be anyone. which you don't see a lot. And so from the start of reading the play, I was really open to what I was about to be reading. And I wasn't disappointed at all. And the way Austin was talking about how the room and the air in the room changed when he saw it, the air in my room changed when I just read it. And so I was really excited to get to work on it. And yeah, the writing, when you hear and read writing that sounds actually like actual teenagers talking to each other, it's a breath of fresh air. Mm-hmm. These were voices that I'd heard growing up with, and their cadences, the way they spoke, and the rhythm of it. And then the relevancy of the subject matter is, you kind of get that by the end of it. It doesn't really smack you in the face or hit you over the head with it. It's a very human story, and I think it's relatable to everyone. Mm-hmm. Because we've all had experiences that occur from the beginning to the end of the play.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, same. It was very, very moving to read on the first read. It was like someone wrote, like followed me in my life and wrote it on paper and got exactly how I spoke and said and wrote things that I have definitely said at one point. And I was like, how does she know? But it just felt it. I remember being in college and like looking for material to work on, and it was like, I don't know who these people are, and like wanting to fit yourself on the page. But Martyna, when I was like, I know what this is. I know who this is. And I, both my parents are immigrants, and to read a play that it was just, yeah, I can't articulate how much it moved. But it was.
So we're going to show a clip of the play. It's from 5 minutes in, about 5 minutes in, so you don't need much context. Rebecca, how many scenes are in the play?
So the play, it's one act play. So it runs at sort of an hour and 40 minutes straight through, but it's a play of 2 parts in a way. The first part, which this clip is taken from, there are 85 scenes in it.
I cut a couple.
There are 85 since you cut a couple.
Oh, for real? Oh, no.
But the and a scene in this play can range from 2 lines to 2 pages, and so that was part of the art of it. So yeah, this is a sort of, we called them, our designers came up with this term of calling them beat suites, which were like suites of scenes that came together that felt like they were in dialogue with each other, either rhythmically or thematically. So this, I guess, is like a beat suite from the beginning of the first part of the play.
Yeah. So.
And the actors haven't seen it, so that's why Sharlene's doing this.
So y'all, if you're welcome to stop your video, so we don't all have to watch each other watch the scene, but you can also keep going if you'd like. Declan, could you play the scene, please?
What are you gonna say at school tomorrow? About your arm, your neck?
I'm not going.
Yeah, probably you should, maybe don't. What are you gonna say at school about your face?
I'm not going.
Yeah, probably you should, maybe don't. What are you gonna say at school about your eye?
I'm not going.
Yeah. What are you gonna say at school about?
I'm not going.
Yeah, probably you should, maybe don't.
Last time this shit happened, remember my eye? Miss Romano saw, sent me to the nurse. Nurse called my mom. Mom said I fell. Then she freaked the fuck out of me when I came home. She said to say I fucking fell. Whatever. Said to say I always fall. I fell. Which I think they'll buy once.
I can bring you the homework.
Say I'm sick.
The flu? I can bring you the homework.
Say I'm sick.
The flu.
Used flu last time.
A cold?
Yeah, just say a cold.
I'll bring you the homework.
Say I'm sick.
A cold.
Something longer.
Right.
Need a few days this time?
Chicken pox.
Yeah. Say chicken pox.
I can bring you the homework.
Say I'm sick.
Chicken pox.
Use that already.
Right. Measles. Mumps.
The fuck's mumps?
A stomach bug.
No.
Why?
Because no, that's nasty, no.
Lice.
No!
Crabs. A cold.
Yeah, I think it's fine to use cold again.
A cold.
A bad one.
Oh, really bad
Don't
cold.
say lights!
I can bring you the homework.
Say I'm sick, the flu.
Are you sure you just don't want to tell somebody?
No. She's scared they'd send us back if they find out what's going on at home.
Who?
Or just her. She's scared they'd separate us.
Who'd send you back?
America?
Right. So it was a little, I don't know how it fared on everybody's screens. It was a little choppy, so you don't get a full sense of the beauty of the rhythm of it. But hopefully it gives you a sense of the tremendous theatricality, the acrobatics of the performances, the things that Martyna has asked of her collaborators. And I know one of the things that I always respond to when I read a play, but certainly responded to when reading this one, is that I could see the people, I could have a sense of the people, and I had no idea what it would be like on stage. Which means that it is in a gorgeous piece of text that requires actors and a director and designers, and the designers aren't with us, but Tom Scott and Isabella Bird and Mikhail Suleiman did tremendous work to bring this piece to life. I was wondering if we could talk a little bit about that 2 minutes that we just saw and what the process was of realizing it for those of you involved.
Yeah. Shall I start?
Yeah.
I just wrote it. You do.
Yeah. Well, that's true. I mean, Martyna, I think what I found interesting was she sort of wrote it and gave it over to us, which as for a director is really exciting. And I think Martyna had a sense, she wanted it to be abstracted and poetic and moving, but she didn't have that was it. Like what she wanted to achieve were things that were a sort of felt things, and she really trusted us to interpret that and come up with a world that could house the play. And I think when I first read it, you just can't help but go, this is a play that has to be really, really nimble and for the actors, and relies on the two of you guys to make it, to bring us to all those locations. Like the design can't be holding anyone sort of down in any way, because as soon as you've settled somewhere, you're onto the next. So I mean, so we kind of Tom and I came up with this platform, I guess, this sort of framing device that could hold the actors and that they could use as a sort of playing space, that we would discover what the rules of that space were together in rehearsals. And we sort of did that. I mean, I just remember that, like, the sort of first day in the first week at Downtown Arts, where we got up and on that taped out square on the floor, and I just went, can you just show me 3 ways of being in bed together, but there's no bed? And can you show me 3 ways of looking out of a window, and 3 ways of, I don't know, being at school, like, you know, show me being in your apartment, and how, and Jasai and Sharlene just did, like, they just played and just sort of went, maybe it's this, and we just did lots of games of moving around the space together in different ways, and actually that, I mean, I really remember, and I might be wrong because I'm on the outside of it, I felt like there was quite a lot of, we would land in a scene where you were, and we'd sort of look at the scene, and then I would sort of go, where might you go next? What does it feel like? Where do you feel like you would go? And you guys would offer something. And then if it wasn't right, you'd offer something else. And it felt very like sculpting, and you guys would offer clay, and I would maybe ways of sculpting it, and the more we did that, the more clay we had to play with, because then you go, oh, we're back in that room, so can you get back into that shape you were in, but maybe we flip it so the audience see it from the other side. And so my experience was very much sort of playing with it and sculpting it together and creating this sort of blueprint, and basically, like, it was a bit like a necklace as well. Again, like, I'd be interested to know what you guys felt from doing it, but I felt like it was like a kind of necklace where you'd find like 3 beads that you liked, and you'd put them together and you'd run them, and then you'd make another bead, and then you'd go back to the beginning and put all the beads together again, and then you'd put another one on. And we had to keep going back and like adding on and layering up, because the gymnastics of it, the choreography of it, required that these guys remembered all that sequence for an hour. and what happened was your body triggered you into the scenes, and so it was like, I don't know, moments of knowing you were standing up, and that would then trigger the line of where you were, and it felt to me like it became the blueprint became really specific. But I don't know how the memory was for you guys making it.
Yeah, I mean, I'd get on board with that explanation of the process. I mean, it was, also when we got further along, like into tech, and the design elements also served as a springboard in crafting it, you know, and that was another process of going back and be like, now does this work here with these lights? Like what changes now that we have all of these different design elements coming in that we've known that we've had, but then when you feel it, like, I just remember like those light cues, you're just like, it's like a jolt.
Yeah.
To the next one. But yeah, it was very, the room itself was very collaborative, and it felt like a very open space to try different things, which I think this play really demands with the acrobatics of it. Like, you have to be able to try and do a flip and be okay with falling. You know, you just have to be okay with falling, because you will fall. And like, you know, so yeah, just crafting in that way was great.
Agreed, yeah.
Well, I'm curious about, does every scene, you know, the chronology of it? Do you know the place of each of the 85 scenes, or are you, I mean, Martyna, did you know all of those things when you wrote it? Or it follows a different kind of logic other than kind of a time-based, space-based logic?
I think there's an associative thing which is why I thought I had to write it in 3 days, because I was like, if I stop, I'm going to start to analyze and try to make sense of it before the thing shows me what I actually think and feel, and learning from that and trusting that. And so like what scenes or beads or speed suites kind of came next was associative of like what a certain thing made me think of. And it felt like when I was watching you, like there was a muscle memory. It was a dance. I was watching a dance being made, but I had no idea that that's how it was. I was in awe that you guys knew what was coming next, because like it made sense when I was writing it. But if I thought about it from that, I don't know. Awe. So
Yeah, it was kind of interesting, because when you first read it, you can make the assumption that Martyna has written real-time scenes that she's then spliced up and chopped and changed between, and that's not actually really what you did, is it? Like, it has that feeling. So there are times where you feel like you're returning to something that's going chronologically, or you're repeating something, but actually you wrote it in its form, didn't like? And so I think we did look at, where are the through lines, where are the scenes that, you know, this is returning to the same thing, but some of those things are not logical in they're not academic in the writing. And so there were moments where we had to interpret, or like you guys had to come up with what you felt like was going on in that moment. So it was quite a kind of, it's an impulsive play, really, and it was built on impulse. and that's how they remember it. Because it's built to make sense for these guys. Like, I think if other actors tried to learn this choreography, you couldn't really do that. You'd need to do it differently. Like, these guys, this is their roadmap through it. And that's why there were moments where I was watching them do it and I had no idea what was coming next. I just couldn't remember, but they knew. So it was impressive.
We also had our designers were in the room sometimes for a lot of it. It was a really I don't think I'd ever worked with designers as collaboratively as on this, and it was I just loved it so much, and I think that they're so talented, and I think we were all in conversation with each other too, so that added to it as well.
What was I going to say? Oh, I mean, at the heart of this play are G and B, and those are what the characters are named, and as Jasai said, it is specific in the play that is open. But there's a third character in the play, and Austin, you embodied that role. And I'm curious what your experience of working on the play, what the play has been. And I guess you knew it before anybody else on this call, perhaps. And here you are still with it.
No, it's been amazing. I think because of everything that, Rebecca has said about how the play is written formally and how Martyna really has tried to, strip it down to, something where you're not necessarily, where you are walking away with like a really profound experience, that there's, that she's kind of warned you against sentimentality and as we can see, like the design is very sparse. And for me, that kind of storytelling is exciting because as the actor, and I think as the audience, you really are watching the story. You're not watching, multi-million-dollar set changes. You're actually watching what's happening between these people. And for me, that is exciting. And as the actor, it's also incredibly challenging because you really do have to hold your feet to the fire in terms of just your kind of barometer of truth. You in a play like this, when you're phoning it in, you really feel it, and that's great, because then you can go back and say, okay, well, I'm clearly not where I need to be in order for this moment to make sense. For me personally, I think I definitely said this during rehearsal. It's been a while since I've worked on a play that's also this kind of like emotionally raw. Like, while there is a lot of style, I think what happens, what transpires between these characters is just very honest and very real. And the stakes are so high that rehearsal was like, when we got a 10-minute break, we needed it, because any 10-page span of this play, you really are like emotionally and physically wiped. So for me, at least, and Sharlene and Jasai can chime in as to whether or not they agree, but for me, the kind of the kind of exciting challenge was, how do I build the sort of like emotional stamina to like do this play and also like still like be a person in my daily life, and it was and so that was kind of it for me, and also honor the story of these people and not like shortchange that in service of like not trying to go somewhere that's too dark or too whatever, but to really like go as far as I could go, but also recognize that that's something that you have to replicate 8 times a week. So that was kind of the crux of it for me.
Cool. Thank you. The last question I have before I open it up is, what if, and something that we're asking on a lot of these calls that we've been doing, a lot of these Zoom situations, just what are you doing to nourish yourself right now?
Sleep.
Lots of movies.
Yeah, lots of Netflix.
I'm reading a lot of books. Like I'm not a big reader, but I've sort of got into reading.
Connecting with family that like are far away, that usually I'd be like, oh, I can't see you, I can't talk to you. And so we like, now it's just connecting with people in all kinds of time zones, and also writing, like starting to write. For the first 2 weeks after the shutdown, I was just like, I was depressed, I was so sad, I couldn't do anything. And then like, and I found comfort in people calling for compassion for that like mental health is real, and like, you don't have to write King Lear right now, it's fine. yeah, that pissed me off when I first saw that. I was like, give me a minute. And now I'm starting to write, and that's that gives me some kind of sense of control over something. So
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. So folks, if you have questions, feel free to write in with the questions. I will say the first question, or the first thing that came up in the box was just a note from Jim Nicole, the artistic director, saying he's just so happy to see all of you in one space, virtual space again. So to start with that, but a question, the first question is about how has the play changed over time? And I think each of you have a different access point for where the play is. So I don't know if Martyna, you want to talk first, but if other folks have insight on how they feel like the play has changed since those 3 days.
Yeah, I think the form of it stayed the same. It just, to me, it feels like it's like gotten bigger and filled out. And when I write a first draft of a play, for me, it's a hypothesis. It's like, I'm not sure. There's things I still have to figure out within it. And that's why I love rehearsal and collaborating so much, because we ask questions of it, and that just makes me realize what might have already been there, but I wasn't aware of it, or what people are bringing to it. And you're kind of trying to make this story the kind of truest version of itself. And so it sort of filled out, and I like pagination wise, it stayed almost the same, yet it's fuller.
Yeah. Other thoughts or reflections on how it feels like the play has shifted?
I think, Martyna said something early on that I had never really, heard somebody say, but she was like, when I, write a new play, or when I'm working on a new play in a workshop or an early rehearsal, she's like, I'm really married to an actor, in the sense that she's like, she really wants to know like what you as the person inside of, these characters, is feeling, and how what you're experiencing in rehearsal can like inform, what goes on the page, and vice versa. And so it really felt like, the version of these characters as embodied by me, Sharlene, and Jasai is like really infused like into the play, and not in the sense that it's like, we've left our mark on it, but I think that like we all have kind of helped to like make these people as specific as possible. And I think that's always so great in like the process of making a new play, if everybody is really like bringing their full selves in terms of just how what am I saying? If everyone is fully present, that just makes it easier to navigate what these characters are going through, and to understand what's happening to them, and that makes it, I think, easier to to crack open a play, and to actually, like Martyna said, make a story the truest version of itself that it can be. And so I think that the result of that is just feeling like things just continue to get more and more and more specific as we continue to to work on the play. So yeah.
Question about so the first part of the play is 85 scenes in 45 minutes. And then there's a second part of the play which takes a structural shift. And it's a question for each of you about the differences in working in the first half of the first part of the play versus the second part of the play, from somebody presumably who was fortunate to see the play, at least in one iteration.
I felt like, I know that we sort of joked about, there's a big formal shift across the two parts. There's also a big emotional shift. And we really joked quite a lot about the rehearsal shift into part two, and the sort of mourning for the game of part one. And what was very interesting for me about the difference in rehearsing those parts, because it's the same play in the same company, but because part one is sort of, they're both relentless in really different ways, and part one is sort of relentless to rehearse, because I felt like it was constantly like staging. Every like 2 minutes was like, and a new shape and a new shape, and what's the next solve, and it was sort of, you had to be so far ahead of it, and it required a lot of problem solving, and it went really slow, you know, like we'd work all day and I'd be like, cool, that was like, we were averaging about 10 pages a day, and I remember Martyna going, oh my, we're not going to get through it. But then when we got into the second half actually, it had almost the opposite problem, that you'd start rehearsing and it would run away with you, and you'd get 20 pages in and go, whoa. You could do these really huge generalized sweeps for quite a long time, and actually the challenge of directing the second half, I felt, and I don't know what you guys think, was actually of like stopping it as much as possible and pulling it back and trying to find specificity all the time, and what we do all the time, because it sort of wants to be, once it goes at a lick and you can't stop it, but you have to almost have the same, you have to look at it in as much minutiae as you do in the first act, but the structure does that for you in the first half. So they were both exhausting in different ways, I think, and you could really tell the atmosphere in the room did change depending on which half was being worked. It was really interesting. Mm-hmm. And also because, you know, one part is a trio and one part's a duet, and that changes like so many things. It was really interesting.
I felt like most of them were short kind of bursts of things that we had, like we knew it was going to end really quick. So you would live in this emotional thing, but it'll be over and you can move on. And then you can just like go with it. And then the second part felt like just so packed that I had to remember to breathe during it. But that was my difference. It just emotionally, I guess the second part felt tighter than the first one. I don't know if that makes sense. But that's what was going through my body.
Yeah,
body-wise, I mean, physically too, the two parts are very different. For lots of reasons that we discovered in rehearsal, and you know, just the pace of going from one scene to another, like up, down in part one, to this sort of longer stream that you just kind of keep, you know, rowing down this whole time. It's just physically different in your body, and working with that on a stage that has now changed because there's another person on it. I just remember just feeling that square be different.
Yeah, it was like Austin invaded our space. He came in for part two. We were like, what are you doing here?
It's very rude.
There's a question about that speaks to this, about the physical staging of the play and the decision to move people to not stay on the platform in part two. And I'm curious if any of you could talk about how you came to that.
I remember there was one day in part one, like, I forget, Sharlene or Jasai, which one, you like stepped down and we were like, the magic is gone. And we're like, you can't leave the first one.
Yeah, I think like, well, it was interesting actually that we didn't really, there were times where you didn't really realize what the rules of the space would be. And because the space is so bare and so specific, but so charged, the space would sort of tell you what was okay and what wasn't. And so it was sort of weird that like there were moments where like in the first half, Sharlene, you stood up at one point and sort of did a journey up and we sat with it for quite a while, and then I think the longer we sat with it, the more the sort of charge goes. But I think also because we had me and Tom, the set designer, had a hunch that in the second half the space might be able to be expanded more, and that you might play on and off the platform, and we didn't know if that was going to work. But I think when you're working with a design that's so it responds in big ways to very small things because it's so minimal, and so you have to be really strict about what your rules are, So if the rule, you know, if you want to be able to sort of expand the space in the second half and for that to mean something, it sort of means then you cannot leave the space in the first half, because you kind of have to trick people into thinking that's the rule, so that when you break it, the air changes. And there are all sorts of things about that as well, like Sharlene and Jasai don't touch at all in the first half, and you probably wouldn't notice that they don't touch until they touch, and then it feels different. And so there was quite a lot of, like, I call it playing the aces, and like you have to kind of know if a set can deliver you about 3 aces, then you have to be really careful about when in the evening you play them, so that they land really strong. So that was sort of, I guess, what we were doing with. There was something that really contained and quite safe and quite poetic and quite kind of, we called it the snow globe sort of bubble effect of like the protected intimate world that's created on the platform. And so of course when you then step off that, it's not safe anymore, and it feels unprotected and sparse and ugly, and it's that emotionally we felt like that unlocked what was going on in the play. So that was sort of the decisions behind it, I guess. But if, I mean, it also, like, you guys just started doing it, like when we started rehearsing the second half, there was just a point where I think like Sharlene went, no, you went, I'll get Jasai, I'll get water, and you left and you went to get water, and it was kind of, it was all sort of came through again through actors' offers. That either worked or didn't, and you could just tell really quickly if something was a good offer or not. I mean, that was what was quite fun about it. It was just sort of, you tried it and you knew straight away whether it was good or not. Like,
there's a question for the performers about the audition process and what that was like.
Decide. You want to field that one?
And it kind of ties into, you know, my first impulse with reading this play. I mean, sometimes you get a script and you're like, I want to do this, is that I need to do this. And for me, at every point in the audition process, I wasn't worried about getting it or not, because I was just so excited to be able to see something like this. Like, I remember after going to the callback and kind of walking out, you know, feeling like, you know, I did my work, and kind of just being able to leave it at the door, because at the end of the day, I didn't feel like this was about me. It was about this play, and getting to be a part of it was amazing. And when I found out that I was going to be a part of it, I was ecstatic, and it was great. But I remember in that period of waiting to hear, just thinking, I can't wait to go see this. So it was actually, after that point, it was a pretty like stress-free process. Aside from like, you know, it was a busy time when I was auditioning for it. So that was the thing, but it was, yeah.
And there was the summer before the production, last summer, there was a workshop, and there weren't auditions for that workshop, and Sharlene and Austin were part of that workshop with us, which is why they are doing it.
that was their
Yeah.
Yes.
Exactly.
I thought I had to get off book for the play.
Oh Lord.
I'd seen Sharlene and Austin and other things, and I was like, I want these people, and so and so we had the week-long workshop up at New York Stage and Film, and we got to know each other. I was like, cool.
It was interesting for me, the audition process, actually, because it's the first time I've auditioned in America, and your audition process is really different to the British process, and that was so fascinating, because I think I felt like I ended up doing like a halfway house between the American and the British.
Remember, actors they freaked the fuck out when you were like, you don't want to talk, and you were like,
yeah,
yeah, no, sit down, we're gonna talk.
I wanted to talk to them, and some people like loved that, and some people I could feel going, oh no, I've ruined your audition because I'm asking you questions, and I'm just like, I always chat to like when I'm auditioning people, I always talk to the actors quite a bit before we read, and then we read, we do it again, and also in the UK, like it was kind of incredible because also you guys have like readers and stuff. It's so like, there's like an actor there to read with you, which is it's great because you've got someone that can act doing the scene, and you whereas usually it's like me and the casting director reading, and badly like round a table somewhere. So it was incredible. And but yeah, I just remember like lots of sort of there were some people that were really intimidated by me being friendly, which was interesting.
This is a very quick question for Martyna, but a bunch of people are asking if they can purchase the script to Queens somewhere.
Thank you, people. I'm working on it.
We're coming to 6, but I have a couple more questions. This one hasn't been submitted. It's not at all self-serving, but it's a question about what the process of working at New York Theater Workshop was like, and if there were things that made it unique.
Amazing. I mean, Yang Yang is.
I've never had so many snacks in my life.
Yes.
We love you, Yang Yang.
Like everybody's birthday. Oh my gosh.
A much deserved shout out to Yang Yang Chen, who is our producing associate, and make sure that everybody is taken care of incredibly well.
Yeah.
Well, actually, there were a couple of things that really stood out to me working there, because my first time working in America as well. And there was a day, I'll get it wrong, I can't remember what you guys call it, but you guys have like a policy of like good practice. What's it called, Aaron, that you read out like on the first day?
Oh, like our statement of core values.
Core values. And I really remember like the first day of tech, and we all stood around, we did our meet and greet again, and then someone read the statement of core values, and it was about how we make work and why we make work. And I remember when it started, and I was standing next to Tom Scott, and we had exactly the same response. And I remember when they said, we're going to do this thing, and me and Tom, being really sort of cynical Brits, were like, oh. And then the more it went, and then actually we both found it really moving, and I really felt like that was something that summed up working at the workshop, that it was a moment of going, we're a company, this is what we do, this is what we stand for, and we're not apologizing for it, and we're going to declare it before we start work. And I've never worked anywhere that's done that. And I found it really empowering, actually. I felt like then we started tech going, yeah, great, this is important. And I really I told myself off for my cynicism, because it was actually incredibly emotional, and I actually felt like, oh, if ever I ran a company, I would want to do that. That felt really special. So that was my big memory of something very specific to the workshop.
Thank you. The last question I have for y'all, which has come in from somebody, is if you could sum up the play in a word or an image, what would that be for each of you?
Thank you. 2 words, thank you. Yeah. And it's okay.
It's okay, isn't
Hmm.
it? There was an image we did in the first week of rehearsals. I asked everyone to bring in 3 images and they could be anything. I was like, they can be something, they could be like a location in the play, like something really real and logical, or they could be a painting that speaks to you or something. And Sharlene brought in an image, which was 2 people. It was like the 2 people's legs, and it was in black and white, and their legs were tied together, and they were walking. It was kind of like a contemporary art 3-legged race. And that image really stuck with me. I felt like that really was tapped into so much of what the play is about.
Yeah. Sharlene brought in another image of these 2 figures, and their hands were sort of, there's a bunch of their hands, and yeah, they were like, I don't know, like the hands were blurred, and it was, and I felt, at least in terms of working on this play, that's what it felt like, because it was like this, almost looked like this really fast game of like, this really fast hand game, and just that that back and forth and that connection. There's so much of, you know, Greg was talking about in the first part of the play how B and G don't touch, and there's so much about touch and connection between all three of these characters. So I think something like that, or a fire escape.
I mean, yeah, that's what I was gonna say. A fire escape to me is like, that is, you know, that kind of encapsulates so much about, you know, this play and these people, and sneaking in and out, you know, of a window, and where home is and what that feels like and how you achieve a feeling of home. You know, that's more than one word, but yeah, that's yeah. For me, that's what it's about.
Great. Okay. Well, the last question that we have been getting is a question about if there'll be an opportunity for more people to see the play. And obviously we don't know what is going on with the, you know, public health comes first. But our hope is, the workshop's hope is that we can bring this remarkable group of people back together again as soon as we can be in spaces together and everybody on the screen is available. So thank you all so much for being with us, for spending an hour with us. I'll turn it back over to Rachel, but Martyna, Rebecca, Sharlene, Jasai, Austin, this has been a real delight, and is really, what a lovely way to spend an hour.
Thanks, y'all.
Thank you guys.
all so much. It's so nice to see your faces and to hear from you all and watch the clip, and it's just wonderful. So thank you. Thank you so much to everybody who's watching from home. I want to give a couple plugs for our upcoming virtual programming. So we have some great master classes coming up on Mondays at 3 this upcoming Monday, April 27th, with director Liliana Blaine Cruz and designer Adam Rigg on collaboration and creating worlds together. The following Monday with Dito Van Riegersberg, it's a cabaret workshop with Dito and his cabaret alter ego, Martha Graham Cracker. We have some more fireside chats this Friday, April 24th at 4 p.m. about teaching theater online with New York Theater Workshop's Director of Education, Alex Santiago Hirao, and a wonderful panel. Next Wednesday, we'll be with NYTW Artistic Director Jim Nicola and composer-writer duo Martha Redbone and Aaron Whitby. And the following Wednesday, May 6th, Aaron will lead another conversation with New York Theater Workshop's Tao playwright in residence, Victor Cazares, and Ruben Palen. Please join us for any of those conversations, master classes. All of these programs are free and available to the entire NYTW community. Everybody who's participating is being compensated, and the workshop continues to pay its staff. So if you are in a position to support our work with a gift of $25, $10, $5, any amount would be appreciated. So please consider donating. Your gifts help us create work now and in the future. We are going to post a link to donate, should you choose to, in the chat, as well as a link to a survey. So please, if you have a few minutes to fill that out, we'd love to hear from you. And all of this information and the survey and everything is available on our website. So join us again. You can find more information at nytw.org. And we hope you have a wonderful night. So thank you all so much.
Thank you all.
We'll see you soon.
Bye.
All right.